Humanistic psychology is a psychological perspective which rose to prominence in the mid-20th century in response to Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory and B.F. Skinner's behaviorism. With its roots running from Socrates through the Renaissance, this approach emphasizes an individual's inherent drive towards self-actualization and creativity. It typically holds that people are inherently good. It adopts a holistic approach to human existence and pays special attention to such phenomena as creativity, free will, and human potential. It encourages viewing ourselves as a whole person greater than the sum of our parts and encourages self-exploration rather than the study of behavior in other people. Humanistic psychology acknowledges spiritual aspiration as an integral part of the human psyche. It is linked to the emerging field of transpersonal psychology. Humanistic psychology has sometimes been referred to as the third force in psychology, distinct from the two more traditional approaches, which are psychoanalysis and behaviorism. In the context of post-industrial society, humanistic psychology has begun to be seen as more relevant than the older approaches. It is largely responsible for new approaches towards human capital stressing creativity and human wholeness. Previously the connotations of creativity were reserved for and primarily restricted to working artists. In the 1980s, with an increasing number of people working in the cognitive cultural economy, creativity came to be seen as a useful commodity and competitive edge for international brands. This led to creativity training and service trainings for employees, probably led by Ned Harriman at GE. In the late 1970s, humanistic psychology concepts were embraced in both the theory and practice of education and social work, peaking in the 1970s-1980s, particularly in North America. Its principal U.S. professional organizations are the Association for Humanistic Psychology and the Society for Humanistic Psychology. Early sources. One of humanistic psychology's early sources was the work of Carl Rogers, who was strongly influenced by Otto Rank, who broke with Freud in the mid-1920s. Rogers' focus was to ensure that the developmental processes led to healthier, if not more creative, personality functioning. The term actualizing tendency was also coined by Rogers, and was a concept that eventually led Abraham Maslow to study self-actualization as one of the needs of humans. Rogers and Maslow introduced this positive, humanistic psychology in response to what they viewed as the overly pessimistic view of psychoanalysis. The other sources include the philosophies of existentialism and phenomenology. Conceptual origins. The humanistic approach has its roots in phenomenological and existentialist thought. Eastern philosophy and psychology also play a central role in humanistic psychology, as well as Judeo-Christian philosophies of personalism, as each shares similar concerns about the nature of human existence and consciousness. For further information on influential figures in personalism, see Emmanuel Mounier, Gabriel Marcel, Denis de Rougemont, Jacques Maritain, Martin Buber, Emmanuel Levinas, Max Scheler and Carol Wouteler. As behaviorism grew out of Ivan Pavlov's work with the conditioned reflex, and laid the foundations for academic psychology in the United States associated with the names of John B. Watson and B. F. Skinner, Abraham Maslow gave behaviorism the name the second force. Historically the first force were psychologists like Sigmund Freud, Alfred Adler, Erik Erikson, Carl Jung, Erich Fromm, Karen Horney, Melanie Klein, Harry Stack Sullivan, and others. In the late 1930s, psychologists, interested in the uniquely human issues, such as the self, self-actualization, health, hope, love, creativity, nature, being, becoming, individuality, and meaning that is, a concrete understanding of human existence, included Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, and Clark Mustakas, who were interested in founding a professional association dedicated to a psychology focused on these features of human capital demanded by post-industrial society. The humanistic psychology perspective is summarized by 5 core principles or postulates of humanistic psychology first articulated in an article written by James Bugentle in 1964 and adapted by Tom Greening, psychologist and longtime editor of the Journal of Humanistic Psychology. The 5 basic principles of humanistic psychology are: human beings, as human, supersede the sum of their parts. they cannot be reduced to components. Human beings have their existence in a uniquely human context, as well as in a cosmic ecology. Human beings are aware and are aware of being aware, that is, they are conscious. Human consciousness always includes an awareness of oneself in the context of other people. Human beings have some choice and, with that, responsibility. Human beings are intentional, aim at goals, are aware that they cause future events, and seek meaning, value, and creativity. While humanistic psychology is a specific division within the American Psychological Association, humanistic psychology is not so much a discipline within psychology as a perspective on the human condition that informs psychological research and practice. Practical origins: WW2 created practical pressures on military psychologists. They had more patients to see and care for than time or resources permitted. The origins of group therapy are here. Eric Berne's progression of books showed this transition out of what we might call pragmatic psychology of WW2 into his later innovation, transactional analysis, one of the most influential humanistic pop psychologies of the later 1960s-1970s. Orientation to scientific research: humanistic psychologists generally do not believe that we will understand human consciousness and behavior through Cartesian-Newtonian scientific research. The objection that humanistic psychologists have to traditional research methods is that they are derived from unsuited for the physical sciences and not especially appropriate to studying the complexities and nuances of human meaning-making. However, humanistic psychology has involved scientific research of human behavior since its inception. For example, Abraham Maslow proposed many of his theories of human growth in the form of testable hypotheses, and he encouraged human scientists to put them to the test. Shortly after the founding of the American Association of Humanistic Psychology, its president, psychologist Sidney Jouherad, began his column by declaring that research is a priority. Humanistic psychology will be best served if it is undergirded with research that seeks to throw light on the qualities of man that are uniquely human. In May 1966, the AAHP released a newsletter editorial that confirmed the humanistic psychologists' allegiance to meaningfulness in the selection of problems for study and of research procedures, and an opposition to a primary emphasis on objectivity at the expense of significance. This underscored the importance of research to humanistic psychologists as well as their interest in special forms of human science investigation. Likewise, in 1980, the American Psychological Association's publication for humanistic psychology ran an article titled, "What Makes Research Humanistic?" As Donald Polkinghorne notes, humanistic theory does not propose that human action is completely independent of the environment or the mechanical and organic orders of the body, but it does suggest that, within the limits of experienced meanings, persons as unities can choose to act in ways not determined by prior events. And this is the theory we seek to test through our research. A human science view is not opposed to quantitative methods, but, following Edmund Husserl, favors letting the methods be derived from the subject matter and not uncritically adopting the methods of natural science, and advocates for methodological pluralism. Consequently, much of the subject matter of psychology lends itself to qualitative approaches, and quantitative methods are mainly appropriate when something can be counted without leveling the phenomena. Research has remained part of the humanistic psychology agenda, though with more of a holistic than reductionistic focus. Specific humanistic research methods evolved in the decades following the formation of the humanistic psychology movement. Development of the field: these preliminary meetings eventually led to other developments, which culminated in the description of humanistic psychology as a recognizable third force in psychology. Significant developments included the formation of the Association for Humanistic Psychology in 1961 and the launch of the Journal of Humanistic Psychology in 1961. Subsequently, graduate programs in humanistic psychology at institutions of higher learning grew in number and enrollment. In 1971, humanistic psychology as a field was recognized by the American Psychological Association and granted its own division within the APA. Division 32 publishes its own academic journal called The Humanistic Psychologist. In 1972, KOCE-TV in the Coast Community College District, produced an award-winning television series titled As Man Behaves with Carl Rogers as a primary consultant, working with Matthew Duncan as psychologist host and with Bernard Luskin executive producer. This was one of the most viewed television series in psychology ever produced and widely fostered the various aspects of humanistic psychology. The major theorists considered to have prepared the ground for humanistic psychology are Otto Rank, Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers and Rollo May. Maslow was heavily influenced by Kurt Goldstein during their years together at Brandeis University. Psychoanalytic writers also influenced humanistic psychology. Maslow himself famously acknowledged his indebtedness to Freud and towards a psychology of being. Other psychoanalytic influences include the work of Wilhelm Reich, who discussed an essentially good, healthy core self and character analysis, and Carl Gustav Jung's mythological and archetypal emphasis. Other noteworthy inspirations for and leaders of the movement include Roberto Assagioli, Gordon Allport, Medard Boss, Martin Buber, James Bugentle, Viktor Frankl, Erich Fromm, Hans Werner Jesmann, Amedeo Giorgi, Kurt Goldstein, Sidney Jouarad, R.D. Laing, Clark Mustakers, Lewis Mumford, Fritz Perls, Antony Sutich, Thomas Zorse, Kirk J. Schneider, and Ken Wilber. Carl Rogers was trained in psychoanalysis before developing humanistic psychology. Counseling and therapy. The aim of humanistic therapy is usually to help the client develop a stronger and healthier sense of self, also called self-actualization. Approaches. Humanistic psychology includes several approaches to counseling and therapy. Among the earliest approaches we find the developmental theory of Abraham Maslow, emphasizing a hierarchy of needs and motivations. The existential psychology of Rollo May, acknowledging human choice and the tragic aspects of human existence. And the person-centered or client-centered therapy of Carl Rogers, which is centered on the client's capacity for self-direction and understanding of his or her own development. The therapist should ensure that all of the unregistered trademark S feelings are being considered and that the therapist has a firm grasp on the concerns of the client while ensuring that there is an air of acceptance and warmth. Existential psychotherapies apply existential philosophy, which emphasizes the idea that humans have the freedom to make sense of their lives. They are free to define themselves and do whatever it is they want to do. This is a type of humanistic therapy that forces the client to explore the meaning of their life, as well as its purpose. There is a conflict between having freedoms and having limitations. Examples of limitations include genetics, culture, and many other factors. Existential therapy involves trying to resolve this conflict. Another approach to humanistic counseling and therapy is Gestalt therapy, which puts a focus on the here and now, especially as an opportunity to look past any preconceived notions and focus on how the present is affected by the past. Role-playing also plays a large role in Gestalt therapy and allows for a true expression of feelings that may not have been shared in other circumstances. In Gestalt therapy, nonverbal cues are an important indicator of how the client may actually be feeling, despite the feelings expressed. Also part of the range of humanistic psychotherapy are concepts from depth therapy, holistic health, encounter groups, sensitivity training, marital and family therapies, body work, and the existential psychotherapy of Medard Boss. Most recently compassionate communication, the rebranding of nonviolent communication of Marshall Rosenberg seems to be the leading edge of innovation in this field because it is one of very few psychologies with both a simple and clear model of the human psyche and a simple and clear methodology, suitable for any two persons to address and resolve interpersonal conflict without expert intervention, a first in the field. Empathy and self-help. Empathy is one of the most important aspects of humanistic therapy. This idea focuses on the therapist unregistered trademark S ability to see the world through the eyes of the client. Without this, therapists can be forced to apply an external frame of reference where the therapist is no longer understanding the actions and thoughts of the client as the client would, but strictly as a therapist, which defeats the purpose of humanistic therapy. Included in empathizing, unconditional positive regard is one of the key elements of humanistic psychology. Unconditional positive regard refers to the care that the therapist needs to have for the client. This ensures that the therapist does not become the authority figure in the relationship, allowing for a more open flow of information as well as a kinder relationship between the two. A therapist practicing humanistic therapy needs to show a willingness to listen and ensure the comfort of the patient where genuine feelings may be shared but are not forced upon someone. Marshall Rosenberg, one of Carl Rogers' students, emphasizes empathy in the relationship in his concept of nonviolent communication. Self-help is also part of humanistic psychology. Sheila Ernst and Lucy Goodison have described using some of the main humanistic approaches in self-help groups. Co-counseling, which is an approach based purely on self-help, is regarded as coming from humanistic psychology as well. Humanistic theory has had a strong influence on other forms of popular therapy, including Harvey Jackens' re-evaluation counseling and the work of Carl Rogers, including his student Eugene Gendlin, as well as on the development of the humanistic psychodrama by Hans Werner Jessman since the 80s. The ideal self and real self involve understanding the issues that arise from having an idea of what you wish you were as a person, and having that not match with who you actually are as a person. The ideal self is what a person believes should be done, as well as what their core values are. The real self is what is actually played out in life. Through humanistic therapy, an understanding of the present allows clients to add positive experiences to their real self concept. The goal is to have the two concepts of self become congruent. Rogers believed that only when a therapist was able to be congruent, a real relationship occurs in therapy. It is much easier to trust someone who is willing to share feelings openly, even if it may not be what the client always wants. This allows the therapist to foster a strong relationship. Non-pathological, humanistic psychology tends to look beyond the medical model of psychology in order to open up a non-pathologizing view of the person. This usually implies that the therapist downplays the pathological aspects of a person's life in favor of the healthy aspects. Humanistic psychology tries to be a science of human experience, focusing on the actual lived experience of persons. Therefore, a key ingredient is the actual meeting of therapist and client and the possibilities for dialogue to ensue between them. The role of the therapist is to create an environment where the client can freely express any thoughts or feelings. He does not suggest topics for conversation nor does he guide the conversation in any way. The therapist also does not analyze or interpret the client-unregistered trademark's behavior or any information the client shares. The role of the therapist is to provide empathy and to listen attentively to the client. Social issues. While personal transformation may be the primary focus of most humanistic psychologists, many now investigate pressing social, cultural, and gender issues. Even the earliest writers who were associated with and inspired by psychological humanism explored topics as diverse as the political nature of normal and everyday experience, the disintegration of the capacity to love in modern consumerist society, the growing technological dominance over human life, and the question of evil. In 1978, the Association for Humanistic Psychology embarked on a 3-year effort to explore how the principles of humanistic psychology could be used to further the process of positive social and political change. The effort included a 12-hour political party, held in San Francisco in 1980, where nearly 1,400 attendees discussed presentations by such non-traditional social thinkers as Ecotopia author Ernest Callenbach, Aquarian conspiracy author Marilyn Ferguson, Person Planet author Theodore Roszak, and New Age politics author Mark Satin. The emergent perspective was summarized in a manifesto by AHP President George Leonard. It proffered such ideas as moving to a slow-growth or no-growth economy, decentralizing and deprofessionalizing society, and teaching social and emotional competencies in order to provide a foundation for more humane public policies and a healthier culture. There have been many subsequent attempts to articulate humanistic psychology-oriented approaches to social change. For example, in 1989 Maureen O'Euro unregistered trademark Hara, who had worked with both Carl Rogers and Paulo Freire, pointed to a convergence between the two thinkers. According to O'Hara, Both focus on developing critical consciousness of situations which oppress and dehumanize. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Institute of Noetic Sciences President Willis Harman argued that significant social change cannot occur without significant consciousness change. In the 21st century, humanistic psychologists such as Edmund Bourne and Joanna Macy continue to apply psychological insights to social and political issues. In addition to its uses in thinking about social change, humanistic psychology is considered to be the main theoretical and methodological source of humanistic social work. Humanistic social work. After psychotherapy, social work is the most important beneficiary of the humanistic psychology's theory and methodology. These have produced a deep reform of the modern social work theory and practice, leading, among others, to the occurrence of a particular theory and methodology, the humanistic social work. Most values and principles of the humanistic social work practice, described by Malcolm Payne in his book Humanistic Social Work, core principles in practice, namely creativity in human life and practice, developing self and spirituality, developing security and resilience, accountability, flexibility and complexity in human life and practice, directly originate from the humanistic psychological theory and humanistic psychotherapy practice. Also, the representation and approach of the client and social issue in social work is made from the humanistic psychology position. According to Petru Stefaroy, the way humanistic representation and approach of the client and his personality is represented is, in fact, the theoretical, axiological and methodological foundation of humanistic social work. In setting goals and the intervention activities, in order to solve social human problems, there prevail critical terms and categories of the humanistic psychology and psychotherapy, such as self-actualization, human potential, holistic approach, human being, free will, subjectivity, human experience, self-determination development, spirituality, creativity, positive thinking, client-centered and context-centered approach intervention, empathy, personal growth, empowerment. See also. References. External links, Association for Humanistic Psychology, Society for Humanistic Psychology, Division 32 of the American Psychological Association, University of West Georgia's Humanistic Psychology Program, All About Humanistic Psychology, further reading, Bindexotilos, S. Psychology and the Perennial Philosophy, Studies in Comparative Religion. Bloomington, Indiana, World Wisdom. ISBN 978-1-936597-20-8. Bugentle, J.F.T. Challenges of Humanistic Psychology. New York, New York, McGraw-Hill. Bugentle, J.F.T. The Third Force in Psychology. Journal of Humanistic Psychology 4, 19 doi, 10.1177/002216786400400102. Buhler, C., and Allen, M. Introduction to Humanistic Psychology. Monterey, CA, Brooks Cole Pub Company. Chiang, H. M., and Maslow, A. H. The Healthy Personality. New York, New York, D. Van Nostrand Company. DeCarvalho, R. J. The Founders of Humanistic Psychology. New York, New York, Praeger Publishers. Frick, W. B. Humanistic Psychology, Conversations with Abraham Maslow, Gardner Murphy, Carl Rogers, Bristol, Indiana, Wyndham Hall Press. From, E. The Same Society. Oxford, England, Reinhardt and Company. From, E. The Same Society. Oxford, England, Reinhardt and Company. Jesman, H. W. Humanistic Psychology and Humanistic Psychodrama. THN Florin TH1 quarter TH degree TH1 half THNN THN TH micron NTH TH degree NTHN THN TH 3 quarters TH TH 3 quarters TH cubed THN TH TH cubed N Florin TH1 quarter TH degree TH1 half THNN THN TH micron NTH TH degree NTHN THN TH 3 quarters THN euro TH degree TH1 quarter TH degree 3 through 3/4 nthth squared th degree Japsi Rubux 25808 php, Human Potentialities, The Challenge and the Promise. Human Potentialities, The Challenge and the Promise. St. Louis, Missouri, W. H. Green. Kress, Oliver. A New Approach to Cognitive Development, Ontogenesis and the Process of Initiation. Evolution and Cognition 2, 4, 319-332. Maddy, S.R., and Costa, P.T. Humanism in Personology, Allport, Maslow, and Murray, Chicago, Illinois, R. Diony Atherton. Maziek, H., and Sexton, V.S.J.A. Phenomenological, Existential, and Humanistic Psychologies, A Historical Survey. New York, New York, Gruen and Stratton. Moss, D. Humanistic and Transpersonal Psychology, A Historical and Biographical Sourcebook. Westport, Connecticut, Greenwood Press. Mustakas, C. The Self, Explorations in Personal Growth. Harper and Row. Murphy, G. Human Potentialities. New York, New York, Basic Books. Neville, D. D. Humanistic Psychology, New Frontiers. New York, New York, Gardner Press. Otto, H. A. Human Potentialities, The Challenge and the Promise. St. Louis, Missouri, W. H. Green. Rogers, C. R., Lyon, H. C. Jr., Torsch, R., On Becoming an Effective Teacher, Person-Centered Teaching, Psychology, Philosophy, and Dialogues with Carl R. Rogers and Harold Lyon. London, Routledge, ISBN 978-0-415-81698-4, Rowan, John. Ordinary Ecstasy, The Dialectics of Humanistic Psychology. Brunner, Routledge. ISBN 0-415-23633-9, Schneider, K., Bugental, J.F.T., and Pearson, J.F. The Handbook of Humanistic Psychology, Leading Edges in Theory, Research, and Practice. London, Sage. Schneider, K.J., ed. Existential Integrative Psychotherapy, Guideposts to the Core of Practice. New York, Routledge. ISBN 978-0-415-95471-6, Severin, F. T. Discovering Man in Psychology, A Humanistic Approach. New York, New York, McGraw-Hill. Singh, J. The Humanistic View of Man. New Delhi, India, Indian Institute of Public Administration. Sutich, A. J., and Vich, M.A. Readings in Humanistic Psychology. New York, New York, Free Press. Welch, I., Tate, G., and Richards, F. Humanistic Psychology, A Sourcebook. Buffalo, New York, Prometheus Books. Zucker, R.A., Rubin, A.I., Aronoff, J., and Frank, S. Personality Structure in the Life Course. New York, New York, Springer.